This is a news flash from National 9 News.
Welcome to this special National 9 News update, and the news out of Paris on the condition of Princess Diana is not good. She is now officially reported as dead. Princess Diana died around 4 a.m. French time, Paris time, about 1 hour ago.
And it seems to me you lived your life.
Yeah, that was Tracy Grimshaw there reporting on the death of Princess Diana on the 31st of August 1997. But was the crash in that Paris tunnel a tragic accident or, as many have suggested over the years, something more sinister? Well, the father of Diana's boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, who also died that night, believes it was part of a conspiracy.
And our next guest, Michael Cole, was actually Mohammed Al Fayed's right-hand man throughout that ordeal. He joins us now from London. Michael, good evening to you there in London. I understand some 20 years on, you're still of the view that Diana's death was in fact a political assassination. I've got to ask, a political assassination by who?
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Lisa. And I must just say, first of all, how terrible it was to hear that clip. As you say, Tim, we're coming up to the 19th anniversary. And it doesn't get any easier, particularly for Mohammed Al Fayed and his family. All he wants and all he's ever wanted is what any parent who's lost a child and a very dear friend, Princess Diana, in terrible circumstances, to find out the truth. And you ask a very good question, and it's one that needs to be addressed. And I'm glad to say a heroic Australian who died earlier this year called John Morgan addresses it in this book, How They Murdered Princess Diana, The Shocking Truth. And in that, John Morgan, who lived just north of Brisbane, I went to see him, he raises 44 issues that say that Diana was assassinated. And bear in mind, it's not Mohammed saying it, it's not me saying it. The princess, on 2 occasions, specifically predicted her own death and the means by which she would meet her death. And she specifically blamed her husband or former husband for engineering a crash to look like an accident in which she would die. She felt so strongly about this that she went to her own solicitor, a man called Victor Mishcon, now dead, Lord Mishcon, and she told him everything in the company of her private secretary. And Mishcon wrote the whole thing down in a note. And after her death, because the circumstances were so as the princess had predicted it, he took that note to Scotland Yard, and Scotland Yard suppressed that note for 6 years. Had that note been sent to the French inquiry, they wouldn't have looked into it as a traffic accident, but as a murder, and we would have had a very different outcome. And that wasn't the only time. The princess also wrote another note known as the Burrell Note that was also suppressed or not published for 6 years, in which in her own handwriting she said, "This is a very dangerous time for me." And she had her own prescience. And you know, Tim, it's not just me. Her Majesty the Queen, your Queen, our Queen, when saying goodbye to Diana's butler, Paul Burrell, she said to him, "Beware the men in the shadows, beware the dark forces that will be ranged against you." Now, what we need, and what we've always need, is a thoroughgoing and real inquiry. The inquest in this country, the 11 jurors were not even allowed to consider a verdict of murder. On day one, the coroner, Lord Justice Scott Baker, said to them, 11 of them, "You're not even going to be allowed to consider whether this was murder." Well, he tried to bring in a verdict of accidental death, but the 11 jurors, ordinary Londoners, wouldn't have it. And they brought in the most serious verdict they could, which was they were killed. That's what they said.
So, Michael, I mean, these are pretty powerful forces being rallied here. So who do you think is behind what you describe as the murder of Princess Diana?
Unlawful killing. Well, You know, the thing, Lisa, about the Secret Services is that they do things in secret. But there's any amount of evidence to say that MI6, the British Secret Intelligence Service, has a record of doing what they call wet jobs off the book. Of course, it's very difficult for this proof to come in, but evidence does arise even all these years afterwards. And as I sit here talking to you, and as Mohammed is at home with his family, we are just hoping that more information will come out. Even last year, some photographs were produced of SAS Special Forces training on a motorway to take out a motor car, to kill somebody. Those photographs were suddenly produced. And it's during the inquest, and I sat through 6 months of it, every day, a lot of time was spent examining an MI6 plot that had been drawn up to murder Slobodan Milosevic, the Serbian leader, as he went to a conference in Geneva in a tunnel in Switzerland. I mean, this was discussed. This wasn't fantasy. And now the head of the MI6, who gave evidence at that inquest, a man called Sir Richard Dearlove, of course, pooh-poohed and denied that there was any MI6 involvement. Yeah. But Richard Dearlove was discredited largely in the recent Chilcot inquiry report into the causes of the war and the conduct of the war in Iraq, and he was largely discredited in that. So let's look at the real witnesses. Let's look at what Diana said. Let's look at what is in John Morgan's book here, an honest work of a man who was
Michael,
an independent witness.
OK, I'm terribly sorry. We have completely run out of time. But can I just ask you one last question and a very quick answer? There were a lot of rumours swirling around that Diana was pregnant at the time that she died. Can you confirm that?
Mohammed believes that she was. The fact of the matter is this, that her body was embalmed at the hospital in Paris, which was completely illegal. You cannot embalm a body in France without the specific authority of the family or the local mayor. Neither was forthcoming. Right. She was embalmed on the authority of a low-ranking British diplomat.
OK.
And another thing, if you don't have the time, I can understand, but there is another point which could be made perhaps on another occasion.
I tell you what, we will find out what that is. We'll put it on our website. We'll also put the details of the book on our website as well. We are going to have to leave it there, though. Michael Cole, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Lisa, Tim, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.